Bunch of idiots. What are they all gathered here for? Go out and make waves. Stephen stood on the parapet of the 5th floor, looking at the zombies hanging around below. A hint of violence flashed across his face. From the zombie outbreak, 30 whole days had passed. In the beginning, it just appeared on the other side of the ocean. The crowd thought that there was no problem and that it could definitely be controlled over there. As a result, it only took 3 days for the zombies to cross the ocean and come to Luyan country, biting people on sight, spreading the word to 10 to 100. The speed of the spread was so fast that everyone was caught off guard. The emergency mechanism couldn't even react in time. The city was plunged into panic, and then began to move in the direction of irreversible loss of control. 7 days later, cell phone communication was interrupted. Half a month later, the power went out. Now a full month has passed, and Stephen's neighborhood is completely cut off from the outside world. Of course, this was not the reason why he was annoyed. Before the end came, he was an otaku. Not going out for a month was no problem as long as there was food. What annoyed him was that there was no more food in the house. At first, when he saw the news on the internet, he made some preparations as fast as he could, which supported him until now. Otherwise, Stephen believed that he should have turned into a zombie as well. Those zombies on the ground, a significant portion of them are neighbors who know each other. Just because they went downstairs to look for food, they were bitten by zombies and turned into zombies. These zombies seemed to retain a little bit of subconsciousness and didn't leave, just hanging around in front of the house. We can only take a gamble. We can't be starved to death. Stephen sighed softly and turned into the stairs, returning to his home on the 5th floor. The door was open. Entering the living room, twisting his head, he could see that there was a person in the kitchen who was busy there, wearing a housecoat, with a marvelous back and very beautiful curves. Just a moment, it will be ready soon. Janine heard the footsteps and turned around to say. Her facial features were exquisite, her voice was melodious, and her body was plump, like a ripe water, honey, peach. Tough on you, Janine, Stephen said softly. Janine was his mother-in-law, his wife's stepmother, 28 years old. However, his wife hadn't called her a mom, and he wasn't allowed to call her mother-in-law, so Stephen chose a compromise name, Janine. The wife died in a car accident last year. Now in this world, Janine was considered Stephen's only relative. Janine shook her head, didn't say anything, and concentrated on the porridge. Stephen looked at the bucket next to him and muttered, only half a bucket of water left. The tap water was cut off only 2 days ago. However, since the zombie outbreak in Wanhai City, Stephen hadn't had tap water and was worried that the water was infected, something he had heard about before. All this water was connected a month ago. It's just that the food is gone, the water is gone, and there's no way to get out without it, or else we'll have to sit around and wait for starvation. Now that the whole world was paralyzed, one simply couldn't expect anyone to come to one's rescue. In fact, Stephen was even a little afraid of meeting survivors now. According to the information he had read online earlier, after being discovered by the survivors, he would most likely be killed himself, and Janine would become a trophy. Regarding his own strength, Stephen was very self-aware. He used to be a programmer, staying up late every day to code, lacking exercise, and his physical fitness was poor. So, fighting he is a rookie. The only advantage is that he is very handsome, and his face value crushes the kind of fresh meat. Unfortunately, this is the end of the world. Handsome is useless, really useful. Stephen also absolutely not agreed. Stephen, get ready to eat. Janine greeted. 2 bowls of thin rice with only a little bit of rice, garnished with some vegetable leaves, plus a dish of kimchi. This was breakfast, and of course, lunch and dinner as well. Janine, I'm going to walk outside later. Stephen picked up a bowl of thin rice and huffed. Janine's petite body shivered, raised her head to look at him, and whispered, there are all walkers down there, and the building is blocked off. How are you going to get down there? Stephen put down the bowl. Use the rope to go down. There are ropes at home. Janine bit her lip and let out a hum, lowering her head to eat. There was no more water, no more food. It was impossible to keep here and wait for death. This, she also knew very well. After breakfast, Stephen came to the bedroom, bent down and pulled out the box under the bed, opened it, and fished out a long knife from under his clothes. This was an artifact that he bought last year when he went to the Highlands for a break. After buying it back, Stephen found someone to open the edge, sharp and incomparable. The material is not to say, cutting coins are not a problem. Take off the plastic bag outside. Stephen found 2 more pieces of clothing, carefully wiped away the maintenance butter on the knife, revealing the cold and shiny blade. I hope I can make it back alive, Stephen muttered. Just at this time, a mechanical voice suddenly sounded in his head. Ding, Doomsday Lord system activated. Ding, activation successful. May I ask, Master, is it possible to receive the newbie gift pack immediately? Wow, system. Stephen was overjoyed. Claim. Ding, successfully claimed the newbie gift pack. Congratulations to the Master for obtaining. Carry on Warehouse X1, exclusive strengthening serum X1, supernatural ability, nimble power. Tip. The master can operate the system through his mind, view the attribute panel, and so on. After listening to the system prompt, Stephen silently chanted, "Open the attribute panel." Immediately, a virtual panel appeared in the void. Character, Stephen. Strength, 65. Speed, 62. Physique, 53. Spirit, 62. Ability, Nimble Power Level 1. Experience required for upgrade, 0/10. Remark 1. Adult attributes, 60 passes. 80 is the athlete level, 100 is the limit, and will not be prompted in the future. Remark 2. Physique includes endurance, defense, self-healing ability, vision, hearing, and other attributes. No more tips in the future. Physique is really useless, actually failed the test. Stephen sighed in his heart, then checked the carry-on warehouse, a cubic meter, which contained an exclusive strengthening serum. Having a carry-on warehouse is a lot more convenient. Stephen muttered in a low voice, "Extract the serum." With a flash of light, a small glass vial flew out of the void and landed in Stephen's hand. Without saying a word, Stephen cracked the mouth of the glass vial and poured the serum into his mouth, and immediately felt a warm current melting in his stomach and flowing to all his limbs. Pulling out the attribute panel again to take a look, all the attributes were raised to 90. In other words, Stephen's current physical quality surpassed countless professional athletes and was one step away from the limit of ordinary people. Is this opening up? It's really cool. Stephen could clearly feel that his muscles had become stronger and 8-pack abs appeared, and his eyesight had recovered so that he didn't need to wear glasses. More importantly, he had antibodies in his body. From now on, even if he was accidentally bitten by a zombie, he wouldn't become a zombie. That was the point. System, how are these attributes going to be upgraded? Also, what does it mean to have a numinous power level 1 and 0/10 experience required for upgrading? Tell me carefully. Stephen had actually guessed some of this, but a matter of life and death couldn't be sloppy, and he still wanted the system to be more detailed. My lord, as long as you kill a zombie, you'll be able to gain attribute bonus points. When you kill 10 zombies with your numinous power, you will be able to upgrade that ability to level 2. Note that you must kill with your numinous power in order to accumulate experience. In addition, adults you kill zombies, there is a certain chance of dropping things, such as other supernormal abilities, or weapons, or genetic enhancement liquid, etc. Are there so many benefits of killing zombies? Stephen's eyes lit up after hearing this. If I use Nimrod to kill zombies, not only can I get attribute bonus points, I can also accumulate the experience needed for upgrading. And there's a certain chance of obtaining other supernormal abilities or something else. Is that what it means? I didn't understand it wrong, did I? Yes, my lord. You didn't understand it wrong. It's completely correct. Totally. Stephen smiled. Nimble power? Stephen had just gained some unfamiliar memories of how to use nin power. He took a deep breath and looked at the knife in his hand, his gaze fixed. Wow. The long knife shook slightly, then floated. Spin. Stephen chanted silently, and the long knife spun around him in a dripping circle. Out. The long knife flew out smoothly. Leaving 5 meters away, Stephen felt that it became a bit laborious for him to maneuver the long knife. Pneumatic power level 1. The effective range was only 5 meters. Beyond this effective range, Stephen needed to expend more energy to barely manipulate the object. With the reaction and speed of those fracking zombies, 5 meters is enough. Stephen nodded with satisfaction, stood up, and moved his shoulders. Next, let's go big. Squeak. Stephen carried a rope on his shoulder, came to the living room, and looked towards Janine's bedroom. Janine, I'm leaving. Wait. An anxious voice rang out. Soon, the door to the room opened and Janine walked out. Seeing Janine's outfit, Stephen's heart beat hard a few times. At this moment, Janine, wearing a tight-fitting sportswear, showed off her front and back figure to the fullest. Janine, what are you? Stephen wanted to say something. I'm going with you. How can I watch you go down there alone and risk your life? The two of you have something to look after. Janine said gently, her cheeks a little red. She also knows that this clothes on the body a little that. But there was no way around it. Wearing jeans wasn't much better, and considering the fact that she would have to run and climb stairs and things like that later on, it would be best to wear workout clothes. Janine, no kidding. What are you going to do? Stay home honestly. Stephen shook his head. Don't worry, I definitely won't drag you down. I've already thought about it. If we're attacked by walkers, I can lure them here. Janine stated that if only one of the two could survive, then let Stephen survive. She was too weak to survive as a woman. Even if she met another survivor, she might end up in a situation worse than death. Previously, when the network hadn't been interrupted, she had seen too many messages begging for help, and almost all of the good-looking women had suffered inhuman treatment. Just thinking about that kind of scene made Janine shudder, and she could never stand that kind of thing. Stephen thought for a moment and spread out his hand. Janine, look. With a thought, long knives flew out from the system storage and circled around the two. Alien ability. Janine stared wide-eyed at the scene in front of her, stunned. her small mouth slightly open, almost able to stuff down an egg. This world actually had alien powers? Janine was truly stunned. One must know that the power went out half a month after the zombie outbreak, and the network was only completely interrupted. Before that, they had been learning about the situation outside through their computers, and they had never heard of anyone awakening psychic abilities. Ah, that's right, psychic ability. I can handle the zombies. So Janine, just stay here peacefully and wait for me to come back. Steven smiled. According to the system, no one in this world had awakened their psychic abilities, and he was the only one with psychic abilities. With level 1 Nin power, coupled with his strong physical fitness, Steven could already walk freely in the apocalypse, but it was hard enough to bring Janine with him. Janine reached out her hand, grabbed Steven's arm. Her clear eyes looked at him, and said gently, Steven, in case another alien passes by here. Don't worry about that, Janine. I'm the only one in the world with powers. Steven did not explain more. Janine also didn't get to the bottom of it. She wasn't someone who didn't know the depth of the matter. Since Steven didn't say, of course it was best not to ask. The two of them went out to the 4th floor. The 3rd floor's passageway was sealed by Steven with welded steel bars and piled up a lot of debris. The zombies couldn't get up, and they couldn't get down, so they could only go down with ropes. Enter the room on the left. The two began to tie the rope. Numinous power is to intervene in the movement of an object through the idea. There is a range, but also has a relationship with the density and weight of the object. Theoretically, it can fly. However, Steven was only at level 1 now, and could only manipulate long knives, and things like flying, for the time being, could not be done. Steven, although you have psychic abilities, we are not too sure what this world has become. Be sure to be more careful and don't be reckless. Janine stood in front of Steven, looking up and tilting her head as she helped him straighten his collar. It was the first time Steven had ever, so close, so seriously, looked at Janine. It really was so beautiful. Her skin was white and red, with a jade-like luster in the sunlight, and a month of hardship hadn't taken a toll on her face. I see. Steven nodded. He was 1'9", 1'7". Janine stood in front of him, looking very petite, properly the most adorable height difference. Janine looked deeply at him and said gently, I'll wait for you to come back. Bang, bang, bang. Steven grabbed the rope, and relying on his strong arm strength, he easily slid down to the 2nd floor position. Below, 4 zombies looked up at him, with a lot of mucus on their rotting faces, very disgusting. Die. Steven grabbed the rope with one hand and spread his other hand out, palm facing the zombies, spitting out an icy cold word. Swish. The long knife flew out, and with a flash of cold light, the heads of several zombies exploded like watermelons, and the fishy stench immediately became incomparably strong. Ding. You have killed the zombie. Gain strength +1. Experience in numinous power +1. Current experience 1/10. Ding. You have killed the zombie. Gain speed +1. Nimble power experience +1. Current experience 2/10. Bang. Steven landed on the ground. The long knife in his hand was slimy, and the disgusting odor drilled right into his nose, making him grin. Being bitten by a zombie would turn one into a zombie. If one was surrounded by many zombies, it was likely that by the time the zombies left, one would be left with a skeleton, as well as some bits and pieces of flesh and blood. This was the case down there, many bones, rotting flesh and blood all over the place, and flies buzzing around. Put it away. Steven looked up, waving his hand towards Janine on the 4th floor, his eyes looking around warily. There were still a lot of walkers hanging around. The zombies mainly relied on smell and sound to find humans, and were especially sensitive to sound. Normally moving very slowly, once they made a lot of noise, the zombies were stimulated and went into a frenzy, running wildly, no different from normal people. This information was what Steven had gotten through his experiments before. Be cautious. Steven walked into the adjacent hallway. Ow! A zombie rushed up head-on. Steven's mind moved, and his flying dagger flew over with a brush. Ding! You have killed the zombie. Gain +1 strength, +1 experience in numinous power, current experience 5/10. This was the only zombie in the building. After making sure his back was safe, Steven reached out his hand and gently knocked on the iron door. Ding! 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 Steven carefully controlled the power to ensure that he could attract walkers over without irritating them and making them go crazy. The neighborhood was not very big, but the occupancy rate was high and there were many zombies. With his current strength, it would still be very dangerous if he was surrounded by a large group of walkers. Soon, 2 zombies were attracted over. Ding! You killed the zombies. Gain physique +1, nimble power experience +1, current experience 9/10. Ding! You have killed the zombie. Gain speed +1, experience in yin power +1, current experience 10/10. Ding! Congratulations to Master's numinous power experience is full. Raise 1 level. Current level is level 2. The system's beep sounded. Steven clearly perceived that a mysterious power entered his body, and his manipulation of yin power became easier. The effective manipulation range increased from 5 meters to 10 meters. To catalyze the long knife with Nimrodynamics, it consumed spiritual energy, and after the upgrade, this consumption was also reduced. The power was also improved, allowing for easier hacking of zombies. In addition, Steven's mental power was over 90, which was more powerful than an ordinary person, but he felt a hint of fatigue just now when he kept using his nin power. To Steven's surprise, after the upgrade, his mental power was actually replenished as well, and his fatigue was swept away, restoring him to his spirited peak state. I was going to take a break, but it seems unnecessary. Steven's spirit shook as he decimated 2 more zombies and strutted out of the building. Looking up, he realized that Janine was still lying on the window, looking at the place in a daze, and when she found herself, she smiled brightly and waved her hand at herself over and over. Go back. Steven waved his hand, stopped looking over his head, and headed straight outside. Ouch! 2 zombies rushed over head-on, seemingly a little angry that this human actually dared to be so arrogant. Before they could rush to Steven, their heads exploded like watermelons and fell limply. Ding! You have killed the zombie. Gain +1 speed, +1 experience and nimble power, current experience 3 out of 100. Ding! You have killed the zombie. Gain spirit +1, numinous power experience +1, current experience 4/100. Janine could see clearly from above. The zombies in all directions were gradually converging towards Steven, and her face turned pale with fear. She also noticed that Steven's speed had accelerated, and all the zombies were unable to get close to him, and only withdrew her gaze when Steven disappeared from sight. At the main entrance, 7 or 8 walkers were blocking it. Steven raised an eyebrow. He didn't directly charge up, even if he had just upgraded. He still felt that he was still almost on fire. He couldn't be too reckless. So he walked against the side, carefully approaching the zombies, came to a distance of 10 meters. With a thought, the long knife flew out. Bang! A zombie fell down. Ow! Hearing the sound, the other few zombies showed signs of going a bit crazy and accelerated towards Steven. Steven was fearless as the long knife drew a circle in the air, passing through their heads in turn and returning to his hand. The quality of this knife is really good. Looking down at the long knife, the tip of the knife had a bit of curled edge, but overall it was still intact, and it could still hold up for a while. Steven carried the long knife and went straight out of the neighborhood. Coming outside, the road was full of zombies, strolling around with destinations. There was a convenience store to the right of the entrance. The shelves fell to the ground. It seemed to have been patronized by robbers. There wasn't much on the ground, and there was blood everywhere. There was also a corpse lying in the doorway. The stench was overwhelming. Looks like we can only go to the Home Depot. Steven shook his head and walked straight to the Home Fortune supermarket. Home Fortune supermarket was the only big supermarket in the vicinity, in the middle of several neighborhoods, not far from here. The zombies he encountered along the way, all of them were resolved by hand, and wherever he passed, not an inch of grass was left. Ding! You killed the zombie. Gained physique +1, numinous power experience +1, current experience 23/100. Ding! You have killed the zombie. Gained speed +1, gained item, life spring water, Nimrod experience +1, current experience 24 out of 100. Suddenly, a different beep sounded. Steven looked down at the zombie he had just killed. There was nothing special about it. System, what is the life spring water? As he spoke, Steven opened the carrying warehouse. Randomly dropped items would be directly deposited inside the carrying warehouse by the system. Master, life spring water is a superb thing. Not only can it heal all sorts of traumas, it can also replenish physical strength as well as mental strength. That said, system, I hear this tone of yours. Are you a female? Master, please don't have any strange thoughts about me. The system is genderless. Oh. Coming to the supermarket. The first floor was for buying jewelry, cell phones, and clothing, and zombies were wandering between the counters. Steven stepped in with one foot, and the zombies sniffed his scent and pounced over with a wail. Cold light flashed. One zombie fell down. Steven uses the terrain of the counter to wade between the walkers, making sure he doesn't get mobbed and securing his back. You couldn't kill a zombie without dry bombing their heads. So even if the flying daggers circled around the body, the back was a weak point because in case they didn't blow the walker's head off, the walkers still had the ability to get in close. Although he wasn't afraid of being bitten by them, it would hurt if he was bitten. Steven didn't have the tendency to self-mutilate. Continuously releasing the nimble power, Steven felt a hint of dizziness. This was caused by excessive mental exertion. Without saying a word, he extracted the life spring water. This thing looked like a small bottle of mineral water with a capacity of 100 milliliters. Steven took a sip of it and was instantly shaken and energized, and then took another sip and was revived in the same place. Cool. Knowing the effect of the life spring water, Steven had a clearer grasp on how to distribute his stamina and continued to make a killing. Ding! You have killed the zombie. Gain +1 strength, +1 experience enchanting power, Current experience 98/100. Ding! You have killed the zombie. Gain physique +1. Weapon, a steel blade. Nimble power experience +1. Current experience 99/100. Ding! You have killed the zombie. Gain speed +1. Experience in Nimrod power +1. Current experience 100/100. Ding! Congratulations, Master's Nyan power experience is full. Raise 1 level. Current level is level 3. Another level up. Steven's range to control objects expanded to 20 meters. With each activation of Nyan power, the consumption of spirit was lowered by another point. The power continued to increase. According to this type of upgrade, the rate of power increase was not a 1+1 relationship, but an exponential increase. The spirit power that was originally consumed to the hilt was also replenished once again, saving a little bit of life spring water. Bang bang. Decapitating the remaining 3 zombies, Steven once again opened the attribute panel. Strength, 120. Speed, 126. Physique, 119. Spirit, 108. Ability, Numinous Power Level 3. Experience, 3/200. All of them have broken through 100. According to the system, 100 is the limit for humans. That is to say, no matter if it's a weightlifter or a boxing champion, the strength ceiling is 100. So I'm not human now. Steven smashed his mouth, bent down, spread his hands, grabbed the 2 corners of the counter, took a deep breath, and lifted violently. Wow. The counter that weighed hundreds of pounds was actually lifted by him in this extremely laborious position, and the key was the feeling of ease. Creak. A hand grabbed a stainless steel coat rack, gently pinched, the stainless steel tube dented, a few fingerprints appeared. Steven smiled. This feeling of power that could blow up everything was something he had never experienced before. It was simply exhilarating. According to this development, I'm afraid that I'm going to become a saint in the flesh. Steven was overjoyed. Looking around, the zombies on the first floor had already been killed by him, a few steps to the elevator, towards the -1 floor of the big box store. This was a relatively confined space, and the stench of decay was so strong that Steven couldn't help but frown for a while, and his stomach flipped a little. Because of the power outage, the -1 floor was pitch black. Steven, realized that he could actually see the negative floor, not completely, but he could clearly see the moving outlines. Is this the change brought about by having a physique of over 100? Physique included vision. Steven felt that with the current situation on the negative floor, even if someone with a physique of 100 came over, they would still have 2 eyes and become a blind man. What grass? What's the situation? So many zombies? Steven stood at the elevator entrance, looked around, and found a large area of moving shadows, at least dozens of them, all blocking the aisle into the big box store. Murphy. With a thought, Steven looked deeper. This supermarket was familiar to him, and in front of it was the entrance to the hypermarket, with the glass door closed. Seeing this, Steven reacted, and it was no surprise that there was someone inside the hypermarket. It was the scent of the living that attracted the zombies over, gathering more and more. The big box store's tempered glass doors were strong and tightly closed, and there seemed to be some barriers created on the outside with shopping carts, electronic lockers, and other things. So the walkers, who didn't know how to move anything, were left to flounder. With Steven's arrival, some of the walkers that were a little closer were drawn towards him by his scent. Once we do it here, we'll definitely have to make a lot of noise to stimulate these walkers and send them into a frenzy. However, the first floor has already been cleared by me, so I'm not afraid of attracting more zombies. Although my current physique and spirit are not enough to cope with so many zombies, there is life spring water to replenish my physical strength and spirit. Thinking about this, without saying a word, Steven took out a steel blade from the warehouse, which was the weapon that had dropped earlier. He used 2 things at once. While using his nimrodynamics to manipulate the long knife to slash the zombies, he rushed up and engaged in a close-range fight with the zombies, opening up a wide range of killings. It wasn't quite accurate to say wrestling, but it was actually a one-sided sadistic killing. The zombies in the eyes of ordinary people, in front of Steven, it was just like chopping up a melon and cutting up a vegetable, purely goods that gave him experience and equipment. Ding! You have killed the zombie. Gain strength +1, item super serum, experience in Nimrod power +1, current experience 18/200. Ding! You have killed the zombie. Gain physique +1, item, genetic enhancement liquid, strength type, nimble power experience +1, current experience 35/200. Hearing the system's beep, the more Steven hacked, the more energized he became. The super serum, which could make a person immune to infection and fearless of zombies from now on, was one of the things he craved the most. Genetic strengthening liquid, power type, as the name suggests, can strengthen a person's strength. The strengthening serum, given by the system before, belonged to the combined form of the 2 items, and it was a strengthened version, which could greatly enhance the attributes of a person. Steven was right. There were indeed people inside the supermarket, and there was more than one. He was on a killing spree outside, making quite a commotion, and the people inside the supermarket were all startled. What's the situation? It goes without saying, someone must have come down to look for food again. The zombie team is growing again. Go worries old Zhao. After getting it for so long, don't get that woman killed. It's my turn next. Several men lay on the glass door, looking at the situation outside through the gap, from time to time using a flashlight to shine. After watching for a while, they felt that nothing would happen, and then they turned their heads to look at the hut next to them. A snapping sound came out of the hut, interspersed with a woman's cry, giving them a sense of inexplicable excitement. LOL. Cackle. Footsteps came from behind them. Several people turned around at the same time, only to see a woman holding a torch, walking over with her head held high. The tiles were like a mirror, and the light reflected up, dispelling the darkness, allowing one to clearly see the scene of the supermarket as well as the woman's appearance. It was an extremely beautiful woman. Her features were exquisite. Her body was first class, with the golden proportion of a 9-headed body, and she was wearing pencil jeans that showed off her 2 straight thighs to the fullest. The jeans were bloodstained. In his hand was a gun, not a toy gun, but the real thing. So, despite the collapse of the world order, facing her, the few men acted honestly, not daring to make any rash moves at all. Bastards. Amelia glanced at the hut, a flash of anger in her eyes. Of course she knew what had happened to the hut, and as a woman, she also wanted to help her, but unfortunately, she had the will to do so. In fact, she understood even better that if it wasn't for that woman's existence, these people trapped underground might not have been able to resist making a move on her. A gun did not guarantee her absolute safety, and these guys had thought of a way to deal with her, too. The last 2 nights, they kept waking her up. Amelia was already a bit sleep-deprived. If it continued for a few days, she would definitely not be able to hold out and collapse, and by then she would definitely end up in a worse situation than that woman. That's why Amelia couldn't wait to come over when she heard the commotion, to see what was going on, and if she had the chance, she would definitely escape from here. Is someone coming again? What's going on out there? Amelia inquired as she stood a few meters away, defending herself against the guys while observing the situation outside through the doorway. Can't see much. What the hell? Another delivery for the walkers. A man said blandly. A few men pretended to look outside, their eyes glancing over hard and gulping. Compared to the women in the room, Amelia's attraction to them broke through the sky. A few men secretly sighed. It was a pity that this girl had a gun and was always on guard against them. There was no chance. Otherwise, getting her once would be worth dying for. Huh? The zombie is dead. There were obstacles blocking the line of sight, unable to thoroughly see what was going on, but Amelia still saw the headless zombie that fell to the ground, and her heart burst with ecstasy. Killing a few zombies is nothing. The last batch of people also killed zombies, and in the end, what? They were still all wiped out and joined the zombie army. A man returned coldly. Amelia looked at him. The fact that they can come here means that the first floor is already safe. As long as we team up and kill those zombies, we can get out of here. Get out of here? Why do we need to get out of here? There's food, drink, and fun here. What's wrong with that? Several people were laughing coldly. This was the truth. They were well aware of the situation outside, and after being trapped down there for a month, they had forced themselves to adapt to this environment. Amelia was different. With 6 hungry wolves staring at her around her, she couldn't even sleep soundly. Where could she adapt, dreaming of leaving this hellish place? After a pause, Amelia added, there is a safe zone outside. The information my friend passed on before. You all have read it. Do you want to stay in this dark underground all the time? That kind of safe zone? It's not like anyone can enter it. Hell, I don't know what's going on. That's right. There's everything here except for the lack of sun, and going outside you have to risk your life from time to find food. Amelia's sister, I advise you to recognize the reality. This is the paradise. Is it a little hard to hold it for too long? Do you want me to? Click. Without finishing a sentence, Amelia's gun was aimed at the man who spoke, and coldly said, if you try saying one more word, Auntie will kill you with 1 shot. Outside, there was a bang. The last zombie was hacked to death by Stephen, who wiped off his sweat, panting with exhaustion, and without saying a word, drank the last mouthful of life spring water. At the same time, the beep sounded. Ding, you killed the zombie. Gained speed +1. Gained abnormal ability. Vulcan's power, nimble power experience +1. Current experience 93/200. Abnormal ability, Vulcan's power? Stephen raised an eyebrow and quickly asked. This is a fire ability, right? Master, that's right. This is a fire-type ability that can control any flame as well as release it. Stephen rubbed his chin and thought for half a day before asking. System, can this ability be given to others? He wanted to give it to Janine. It was impossible for himself to stay by Janine's side all the time, and even if he brought her out in the future, there was no guarantee that the 2 sides wouldn't be separated due to some unexpected situation. Not having the power to defend oneself was a dangerous thing. Greedy and chewing more was not good enough. Steven now only wanted to raise his Nian power to a level with a strong deterrent power. As for other supernatural abilities, he didn't really care about them. From the time he left the house until now, he had killed almost 200 zombies in about 2 hours, and according to this calculation, psychic abilities were not something that was very scarce. At least, it was for him. It's possible. Oh master, once you give the psychic ability to someone else, the system will default to him being your subordinate. The subordinate's loyalty to the master must remain above 90%. Once it falls below this value, the psychic ability they obtain from the master will automatically be invalidated. In addition, when the master's subordinate kills a zombie, the master will also receive attribute bonus points. To put it simply, when the master kills 1 zombie, he can gain 1 attribute point, and when his subordinate kills 2 zombies, the master can gain 1 attribute point. It's really a substitute trainer, huh? Steven was directly dumbfounded after hearing this. Is this even possible? According to this statement, then the next absolute must develop subordinates. Many hands make light work, and many hands make light work. The more subordinates there are, even if the effect is discounted, it is definitely faster than chopping up zombies by oneself. System, how hard is it to have a loyalty of 90%, and what's the situation with 100%? Master, 90% isn't that hard yet. Janine's loyalty to you has already reached 100%, and 100% is being willing to die for you. According to you, then wouldn't I just need to develop some subordinates and not care about anything after that? Theoretically, that's true. Master, you're going to be a doomsday lord. Of course you can't do everything yourself. How unseemly that would be. Good system, if you're going to say it like that, then I love you to death. Steven smiled. This was comfortable to listen to, but he heard some names and pursued. What about the actual situation? They can't improve their attributes by killing zombies, and they won't get dropped items. They need to rely on their masters so that they can show off their master's greatness. Perfect. Relying on an ability failure alone could only force them to obey themselves. But if they also needed to rely on themselves to bestow items to enhance their strength, the situation would be different. Attributes mattered. Alien abilities were also important. The two were complementary. For Steven, developing his subordinates and raising their strength didn't require him to bother at all. He would drop items if he had to raise his alien ability and kill zombies. There must be duplicates of the dropped items. For example, he has 2 copies of the super serum now, and he doesn't need it. Except for Janine's copy, there's still 1 left, so he doesn't use it to develop his subordinates. Image, Amelia. I have always wanted to write the Doomsday theme. Before I thought that Felu Doomsday has no readers. In front of the front to see, the whole world only, I have supernatural powers, before making up their minds. If you like friends, please spend a few seconds to vote. Flower support. Your support is the power of my words. Will not open a single chapter. Here it is said. 1,000 flowers, plus 1 more. 500 evaluation votes, plus 1 more. 10 valid comments, different IDs, plus 1 more. Capped at 10 shifts. Any more will not be able to liver. Old iron. Come on, flowers. Evaluation votes smash over. The author fungus to be a liver emperor. Maybe we can create a daughter country. The corner of Steven's mouth showed a hint of smile. Men, this kind of thing has been thought of before, but the conditions do not allow it. Now it was good. He could grant them psychic abilities. Women could be more powerful than men. This conception was completely valid. Thinking of the future harem blueprint, Steven was a little excited. His sharp eyes looked towards the glass door, and his big hand grabbed and pulled in the air. Click. The shopping carts, lockers, and glass doors all flew out, revealing the scene inside the supermarket. 6 men, 1 woman. The woman was pointing a gun at one of the men, swords drawn. It looked like infighting. Steven whistled and strutted in, his gaze landing on Amelia, looking her up and down. In terms of looks, this woman was on par with his mother-in-law. On the body, a 9-head body, golden proportion. Long legs can be called invincible. Then mother-in-law is a little bit more great. However, mother-in-law is bigger. Combined, the tie. Hearing the commotion, everyone looked over and froze. One person, several people stretched their necks and looked deeper outside. Without the cover, under the afterglow of the flashlight, they saw a field of zombies. There was no second living person in sight. In other words, so many zombies, killed by him alone. Several people were dumbfounded, and their hearts twitched viciously for a few moments. My God, just how perverted is this guy? Killing nearly 100 zombies by himself, such combat power. I'm afraid it's only comparable to an army. Also, what was going on just now? Aren't there shopping carts, lockers, and other obstacles outside the glass door? How come they were completely exposed all of a sudden? The several people were suddenly a little alarmed beyond words. One was the fear of this bizarre situation. Secondly, it was the thought that after the glass door was destroyed, without a strong obstacle, how could they fend off the zombies in the future? Amelia was a stunning beauty on Earth, though, a showstopper. But Steven didn't linger in front of her and walked straight to the food area. He couldn't help it. He had consumed too much just now, and the last sip of life spring water didn't replenish his stamina, and he felt a strong sense of hunger. Several people looked at each other, and all followed. SRA. Stephen tore open a bag and took out a chicken leg, gnawing on it with a big mouthful, and with a sweep of his gaze, he grabbed it with his big hand, and all the cooked food on the shelves disappeared. Wow, gone. Several people were dumbfounded. Originally, they wanted to see the opportunity to inquire about the situation outside, but they were scared half to death by Stephen's hand. Had he awakened his psychic abilities? A few people looked at each other, and the first thing that came to mind was psychic abilities. Other than that, there didn't seem to be any way to explain this situation. Although magicians could make things disappear, they needed special props. These foods certainly couldn't be any props. If that was the case, then it would explain how he was able to come here alone. Neither is stupid. Even the end of the world has come, the appearance of supernatural powers and so on, they can accept it. Big brother, did you? You awakened alien abilities. Amelia looked straight at Stephen. She could know what was going on outside, knew much more than many people, and had never heard of such a thing. Someone actually awakened psychic abilities? Such a person was definitely a powerful party in the end times. Amelia's eyes flickered as she weighed in her mind whether to go with Stephen or not. According to the information she saw before, if she went with him, she would most likely have to become his woman, but this man was super handsome, so it was totally acceptable yet. What do you think? Stephen asked without answering. Between words, his big hand grabbed in the void, and a bottle of mineral water flew over. The actual hammer was the supernatural power. Big brother, can I go with you? Big brother, I can fix cars, let me go with you from now on. I'll look up to you. My lord, take me away. I'm willing to be your lapdog and do whatever you say. Even if I'm told to die, I definitely won't frown. Pounce, pounce. Several men all knelt down and looked at Stephen with bated breath, hoping to follow him. If one could follow Stephen, with a strength like his, it would definitely not be a loss, and in the future, with his back against the mountain, he would be able to completely go outside and make a fool of himself. With such a bright future, only a fool would be willing to guard here, and with the glass door broken, the danger factor here increased greatly. Bring you guys? A hint of a smile swept across the corners of Stephen's mouth as he continued to wolf down his food. Right now, his physical attribute reached 139, surpassing the human limit by a large margin, and at the same time, the amount of food increased exponentially, and his digestive ability also increased in a straight line. Seeing this expression on Stephen's face, everyone knew that this wish had fallen through. It was also true that with a strength like his, he didn't need them at all. Thus, a trace of hatred grew in the eyes of several people. Stephen had destroyed the glass door, causing the danger factor here to rise, and the risk ultimately had to be borne by them. However, Stephen's ferocious power was here. Even if they had hatred, they didn't dare to act out, and could only tolerate it. This was the law of survival in the doomsday. The weak were the strong. Big brother, can you take me out of here? I have a friend outside. She holds some unknown information that will definitely be useful to you. Amelia said. Although she was mentally prepared, she still didn't want to survive through that way. She felt somewhat shameful. If she could, she hoped to get Stephen's help through other ways and leave this dark and shady hellhole. Stephen gave her a look and didn't say anything. Amelia secretly pondered. With an ability like his, she thought that he knew about the existence of safe zones, and it was even possible that he had formed one himself. As for other information, was it possible for him to know? There should be this possibility. Then, there was only one way left to go. Amelia stared at Stephen's side face. This man was really handsome. Even if the end hadn't come, encountering him should have moved her heart. In that case, just resign yourself to your fate. Although it's a bit shameful, but it's better than falling into the hands of these beasts. Thinking of this, Amelia walked to Stephen and whispered, My lord, can you take me away? I am willing to be your woman and follow you to the death. Request for flowers, request for evaluation votes, request for monthly tickets, all kinds of requests, all kinds of support. What's the name? Amelia. Age? 19. A question and an answer, open and honest. Soon, Stephen finished learning all sorts of information about Amelia and grinned. My name is Stephen. From now on you can call me Lord. Amelia had already resigned herself to her fate. She gazed at Stephen and asked softly, For better or worse, my lord, can I ask you a few questions? Ask, I don't always answer. Stephen nodded and continued to wolf down his food. He was a little surprised that, in just this moment of work, he had already gnawed on 7 or 8 chicken legs, and that feeling of hunger was actually only relieved by a hint of relief. According to this amount of calculations, the energy contained in a mouthful of life spring water was estimated to be as much as 100 chicken legs. The dropped items were really good stuff. My lord, may I ask if there are still any other exalts out there? No, I'm the only one. Hearing these words, Amelia's eyes instantly lit up. In that case, her choice to follow him was simply the best choice she had ever made in her life. The few men beside her had a look of envy. This was the strength gap. Facing them, Amelia relied on a gun and would rather die than follow. Facing Stephen, Amelia, however, took the initiative to show her kindness, completely letting go of her dignity. "My lord, may I ask if there is anyone else beside you?" Stephen raised his eyebrows and looked over. Seeing this, Amelia's face turned pale with fear, flopping down on her knees and hurriedly explaining. "My lord, don't misunderstand. Amelia just wants to know if Master has any other subordinates, and if he will give Amelia to them in the future." So it turned out to be so. A flash of realization surfaced on Stephen's face. Before the network was interrupted, he had seen that many ruthless people circled as kings and snatched women everywhere, and falling into the hands of those kind of people was absolutely miserable. Stephen still remembered that at that time, these kinds of posts were the hottest and could be seen everywhere, so he thought that Amelia had also read those posts. Click, biting the bone, swallowing the meat with the bone into his stomach. Stephen looked at his greasy hands and was about to wipe them on his clothes. Amelia hurriedly fished out a paper towel and raised it high above her head with a respectful face. "Here." Stephen reveals an expression of appreciation. This woman has a high awareness and is worth cultivating. Wiping his hands feeling, he extends his index finger and picks Amelia's chin. Her eyes met each other. "Don't worry, you are my first subordinate. Won't appear that kind of situation. Well, at least the first subordinate. I will send you a great creation." The words fell. Stephen grabbed in the void. A thumb-sized glass bottle appeared in his hand. He handed it to Amelia and said in a commanding tone, "Eat it." Without saying a word, Amelia broke the top of the bottle with the barrel of her gun, opened her mouth, and drank it all. Not bad. No questions asked, not the slightest suspicion of him. Stephen nodded darkly. Amelia was a smart woman. She couldn't be sure if Stephen was the only one with powers, but she knew that Stephen was definitely a powerful backer. So, since she had decided, she would go one way, swaying from side to side. Instead, she might pit herself. Honestly speaking, Amelia saved up a gambling mindset. However, it wouldn't take long for her to realize that she had gambled right. This is a super serum. From now on, even if you are bitten by a zombie, you won't be infected. Hearing Stephen's words, Amelia burst into ecstasy. "My lord, can you reward us with some serum?" Several men knelt on the ground and kept kowtowing, hoping that Stephen would reward them with a serum. In that case, the end of days would be heaven for them. Therefore, not to mention kowtowing, even if they were told to eat shit, they would definitely not hesitate for a second. Stephen ignored them and ate while putting the food into his carry-on storage. "There are quite a few people outside who have mastered powerful killing weapons. Master, may I ask if you can fight against those forces now?" "Say whatever you want to say." Stephen didn't answer directly. The various bases of the Luyun country's military definitely embracing their own troops at such a time. A missile hitting over one's absolutely cool. Amelia is thinking like this. If only the master has supernormal abilities. Once the news spreads, some people may regard the master as a thorn in the side. Amelia's icy gaze looked at several men as she spoke. Stephen understood. The several men also understood, glaring angrily. This woman actually wanted to finish them off. However, it had to be recognized that Amelia's words gave Stephen a wake-up call. He had only just activated the system and gained his psychic abilities. He had not yet fully grown. And so, Amelia saw that a knife flew out from the void and drew a beautiful arc, and the few people kneeling on the ground were left headless and dead. Too strong. Amelia's beautiful eyes showed a strong color of shock, looking towards the hut. "Master, there is still a woman in there. That beast is still there. I want to." Stephen waved his hand. "Go." Amelia walks over with her gun, thumps it twice, then walks back with a bemused look on her face. Stephen rubbed his chin and looked straight at Amelia. "Even kill a woman?" "Yes, master. You didn't let Amelia stay alive. She can't survive alone. Instead of turning into a zombie, why don't you give her a pain in the ass? I believe that she will thank Amelia if she knows it in her full springs." Worry is a ruthless person. Seeing Amelia's serious expression, Stephen wanted to ask, "Are you sure that she will thank you?" However, it could be seen that Amelia was not an ordinary woman. Ordinary women couldn't get a pistol, and it was hard to be as calm as Amelia. Stephen thought about it and asked. Unsurprisingly, it turns out that this supermarket is Amelia's family's property, and she reads an aristocratic school, which not only has a sparring course, but also a kidnapping course to learn about negotiation and so on. It's a tough guy and a talented one. Killing and decisive. This is the most necessary quality in the Doomsday. Stephen is not afraid of his subordinates being too ruthless, but he is afraid of their holy mother. After thinking about it for a while, Stephen hooked Amelia's chin and came up to her, the tips of their noses almost touching, and asked softly, "Tell Master, do you want to become an alien?" Stephen decided to train Amelia vigorously. She kills zombies and gets attribute bonuses for herself. With 90% loyalty, it also came to the point where she was obedient to herself, and unless she abused her, her loyalty basically wouldn't drop. Below this value, the the powers would automatically expire and would not pose any threat to himself. Taking a step back, Amelia eventually turned against her and betrayed herself. She would only waste one of her powers, a waste that was completely bearable. Master, I want to become an allomancer. I want to become stronger and become Master's right-hand man. Amelia's small heart thumped. She hadn't forgotten that she was Stephen's first subordinate. It meant a lot. She didn't hesitate and didn't hide it as she started to show her loyalty. It was a rare opportunity. An opportunity not to be missed. Stephen nodded with satisfaction, his palms spread out. A ball of dancing flames appeared in the center of his palm and was directly knocked into Amelia's head by his hand. Previously, when he obtained the Vulcan's power, he asked the system how to use the power. The method of using it was very simple. It could be directly injected into the body, and the relevant information would also enter the body of the person to whom it was given. System, can I see Amelia's attribute panel? Master, it is possible. Amelia's attribute panel is being activated for you. Then, a virtual panel appeared in front of Stephen. Character, Amelia. Strength, 75. Speed, 63. Physique, 61. Spirit, 68. Ability, Vulcan Power Level 1. Experience, 1/10. Worthy of being a daughter of a rich family, her physical fitness is better than his own. Stephen nodded secretly. Amelia closed her eyes and was digesting the sudden information. In the middle of the morning, only to see her reach out her hand, a ball of fire rises from her fingertips. Amelia was ecstatic and looked up at Stephen. Master, look. Killing zombies with psychic abilities can also raise the level of psychic abilities to become more powerful. Amelia, you have to work hard. Stephen smiled. The stronger his subordinates were, the stronger he himself would be. Naturally, he wouldn't hide this kind of thing. Amelia nodded her head like a chicken pecking at rice. Amelia will definitely work hard to kill zombies and improve her strength, not to disgrace her master. Take this. This is the gene strengthening liquid. It can enhance your strength. Stephen was satisfied with Amelia's performance and gave her another genetic reinforcement liquid, strength. Leaving this place would involve facing zombies. Relying on psychic abilities alone would not work without enough physical strength to support it. Amelia keenly sensed that Stephen wanted to improve his strength as soon as possible, and secretly wondered, was the master worried that he was dragging his feet? Thinking about it, the action of her hand was not ambiguous. She cracked the glass bottle and poured the strengthening liquid into her mouth. Immediately, a warm current melted in her stomach and flowed to all her limbs and bones. An unprecedented sense of power surged out. Master, I feel it. What a powerful force, Amelia said with a mesmerized face. Stephen glanced at Amelia's attribute panel, where her strength changed from 65 to 75, and secretly shook his head. The effect of the dropped strengthening liquid was not a little bit worse compared to the exclusive strengthening serum of the novice gift pack. So it was true that it was still the novice gift pack that was powerful. Are there meat and vegetables here? Stephen swept his gaze across the shelves. Frozen meat is still available. For vegetables, there are only potatoes and cabbage. All other vegetables are rotten. Master, over here. Amelia didn't dare to delay and walked ahead to lead the way. Stephen walked behind, admiring Amelia's charming back. This woman should be a girl. After all, she was only 19 years old, seemed to have done specialized physical training, walking, waist swinging, a very charming flavor. Amelia, who walked in front, felt Stephen's unbridled gaze, and a hint of excitement actually welled up inside. Inside the circle, many rich girls like her had fallen in love and even had miscarriages. And because she was too strict in her family's upbringing, she even still had her first kiss, and had fantasized about this kind of thing a long time ago, and the few men before her were too ugly looking for her to accept. Switch to Stephen, and it's no problem. Women are visual creatures, and the fact that Amelia was able to switch identities so quickly was inseparable from Stephen's face. After searching some frozen meat and potatoes and cabbage, the two went to another warehouse. Stephen used half of the warehouse for mineral water. Before, they were worried about the tap water being infected. They didn't even dare to take a shower. The water they received was too precious, and they didn't dare to waste it, so they could only use a wet towel to wipe their bodies. Now, although they don't have to worry about being infected, the tap water has stopped, and they can only do so much if they want to take a shower. Food, water source, the two basic survival elements of the last days. After getting it done, Stephen thought for a moment and went back to the lingerie area, recalling Janine's figure, and took a couple of oversized underwear. Amelia stood by and blinked, as if, it wasn't for me. Is your family still there, master? And a mother-in-law, Stephen said without looking back, going back over to the counter and sweeping the condoms off the shelves. Being pregnant in the end times is a dangerous thing, especially with the uncertainty of what's going on out there, and having to think about things more. Mother-in-law? Amelia's eyes rolled a bit with a hint of cunning, and after chatting for a while, she had a preliminary understanding of Stephen. Apart from that mother-in-law, she herself should be the master's second woman, or rather, The master is surrounded by them two women. You go ahead and mention the intelligence. What do you know? I also heard it from Grace. Someone has established a safe zone. It is said that the military base side has stabilized. The specifics, Grace knows better. Who is Grace? You guys are still in touch. Grace is my bestie, a friend since childhood. A sentence was not finished. A mechanical voice came in. Amelia, Amelia, where are you? Hurry up and come out. I've been spotted. Ooh, Grace is going down. The two took a few steps forward and saw a mini drone flying over. The drone still works? Stephen was a little surprised. He was desperate to find out what was going on in the outside world. But the electricity was out, the internet was down, and there wasn't a single way to do it. It didn't occur to him that the drone was still working. This thing was connected to the internet. Master, most of the civilian power supply facilities are interrupted, but some special places still have electricity now and can generate their own power. Also, the power supply is actually running. The base stations and those facilities aren't completely paralyzed, but they don't work as well as they did before the apocalypse is all. Amelia knew what Stephen was thinking as soon as she heard that, and explained immediately. The drone hovered in front of the two. Amelia looked at the drone. Grace, don't be afraid. Tell them you can provide food, and they shouldn't kill you. Stephen noticed that there was a hanging basket underneath the drone, and surmised that Grace was most likely getting food from Amelia that way. They tracked the drone and found me. They're already downstairs. They're from the base. I'm sure I'll end up in RBQ if they take me.